this will kind of perfect storm situation where we'll be flipping it over as we go to both sides. So we will be adding that.
We could, yeah, we could add it as a secondary formation to check out.
Okay.
So we'll be able to, be
Any other questions for Mr. Cleary or Deputy Director? Okay, hearing none, you need us first to move to acknowledge the official district-wide results for March 7th.
That's correct. And again, nothing changed on those. Medina is the 16th congressional district. It just ticked up votes for a few individuals.
Okay, I will move to acknowledge the official.
I'm sorry, could Brian repeat that back sometimes? Could you repeat that?
Yeah, slow up a little.
Sure. Medina is part of the 16th congressional district, so in the crossover county, they will affect the congressional races as well as the Democratic presidential races. And they had a few votes, whether in their recounts or their audits that they found. So that's what we're adding in there, and we're also adding ours of these 6 ballots. Obviously, if they affected which congressional district they affected, the 11th, the 14th, or the 11th, 16th, 14th, or 9th, they will uptick on those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I will move to acknowledge the official district-wide results of the March 17, 2020 primary election for Cuyahoga, Erie, Lake, Lucas, Medina, Ottawa, Portage, Stark, Summit, and Wayne counties. There's a second. I'll second. Thank you. Are there additional questions? Mr. Cleary or Ms. Bailey? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Joe?
Yeah,
I thank you. Just think, passes unanimously. Then I will move to certification of the recount, certification of the amended official results of the March 17, 2020 primary election. If there's a second. Thank you. And are there any other questions? Hearing none, all those signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. It passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cleary. I appreciate it. We'll be needing to sign the results.
I think Anthony has those.
Okay, great.
And did you mention about the recount?
I think I was supposed to be on the certification, but I don't have an agenda.
Just, we did complete the recount for the,
It was Cleveland 7J. We performed on the 25th. 9 ballots were involved. We had counted all matched official counts. We contacted the 2 individuals, let them know that the results was the exact same.
Do we need to acknowledge the recount then? I will move to acknowledge the recount of the county central committee race in Cleveland 7J. Which is second. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I have a question. Do we just acknowledge it, or do we actually have to certify it and if it's submitted? Or is it already included in the amended certification results, right?
That's correct.
Does it matter? Okay, I mean, our agenda said certify. I just wondered if it's a simple acknowledgement or if it's a certification that we actually have to do.
I believe it's an acknowledgement.
Yeah, the recount change is correct.
Thank you.
And I will ask that the agenda doesn't have that item set forth here, so we'll add that to the agenda as a walk-on item. And I move to acknowledge Mr. Wojciechowski seconded. If there's any other questions or comments, hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Brian. Chantil, who we have an EIP for?
I believe, Brenda, you want to put one or Steve Down? Sorry. Come on up, Steve. Steve Down, one of the supervisors from Burlington.
Good morning, Mr. Bell.
Morning. So we submitted a report on our activities. This was based on a policy manual that we submitted back in February to this board. And this is based on a directive from the Secretary of State on reporting on these activities. Basically, everything went routinely, opening of the DS200s, closing them down, sorting the ballots and getting them to the ballot department. As you all know, this was a little unusual election. Election day became April 28th, and I'll just direct you to section 3 of that report, where we talk about the provisional ballots that we issued on that day. It was, we had to go through a battery of questions for each voter and determining whether they were in need of the automarks or whether they did not have the ability to get mail. So of those, there were 34 voters that fit that criteria. The other one was whether they had asked for a ballot already, a vote by mail ballot. And if they did, they were given a provisional ballot. So we issued about close to 1,000 of those. And in the report, it indicates how many were actually valid, 189. So, any questions?
Your performance, I mean, your in-person staffing, I take the summary is that your attendance, punctuality, quality, and efficiency were up to par.
Oh, yes. Yeah, very good.
And these are regular, so to speak, regular temps that you have come in generally.
Yeah, I would say about 75% of them are ones we've had before, but, we always get new ones.
Well, thank you. My experience has been, it was a wonderful, we were all down there, I think, and it was, people were their expectations were met. They knew they were going to have to wait, but they were processing the time there. So I want to thank you and all your staff for your help. Sure. I will move to acknowledge the EIT performance report for the March 17, 2020 primary election. Is a second? Second. Any other questions for Mr. Bell? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Anna Jo. And on to fiscal. Ms. Lucy, are you on the line?
I am on the line.
Oh, great. Glad to have you here, Kendra. I will move to approve the contractual renewal agreement for the software license of the remote absentee ballot delivery marking system for the term July 17, 2020 through July 16, 2021 with Democracy Live Inc. We have Ms. Lucy on the line if there are any questions. Okay, Mr. Pilati, you still on the line? No, Tony? Can you hear us? Okay, well, I'll ask Ms. Soder then. Can you just give us a summary of what the contract's about?
Yes, this is our, absentee marking devices is required by the Secretary of State's office. It was, we've had the same, system for the past couple of years. So we are just, renewing that with them. This is the mobile marketing process for 88 voters.
And Mr. Musson's here. You taking a look at that contract, Mark?
I understand everything, but,
And if there's a second on that motion? Second. Thank you. Are there additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Anna Jo. The motion passes unanimously. And then on to I'll move to approve the renewal of the ballot printing contract with Midwest Direct in the amount of not to exceed $831,415.60 for the second renewal term under the term June 1st, 2020 through May 3rd, 2021. There's a second? Second. Great, we have a second. Ms. Soder, could you kind of summarize that for the board?
Yes, this is our ballot printing and absentee, packet contract for, I believe we first started this contract, at the beginning of 2019. So this is the renewal term that we're exercising for this period, through May of 2021.
And it's the final renewal, I believe, isn't it?
Oh yes, I'm sorry, it is the final. Is that correct, Kendra?
Yes, this is the second of two renewal options.
And did the pricing go up or is it about the same?
I believe that it is, Kendra, it's the same.
It progressively went higher, yes. This is higher than the first renewal. We broke it down into 3 terms. The first renewal, or the first term was 406,000. Second term was 639, and this is 831,000.
What?
It has to do with, that also has to do with the number of ballots and the elections that are involved in this part of the contract. So, Kendra, I believe that the price for ballot sheets had gone up for the very small percentage, but
So presumably this will go down next contract.
I believe that it will. That's the assumption we make.
Yes.
What was
the unit price might go up, the gross price should go down.
Right. How much are they increasing the unit pricing by?
I don't have that on hand.
Do you have a percentage? Is it going up 1%, 2%?
Kendra, do you have the answer to that?
I have the sheet in front of me, it doesn't change, it just has to do with the volume of voters that, ballots that they would be printing for each election.
That's why I don't see the sheet in the packet, but I'm almost certain that the unit price is not increased for the renewal terms for the first and second, only because,
More ballots.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
the unit prices remain the same, correct?
So while the total, I'm sorry, I should clarify, while the total contract price is different, that's only because of the election price.
Thank you. So just, Ms. Zucci, if I recall, when we awarded this contract back in the day, we knew what these prices would be. Correct?
Yes, it was outlined then.
Right, okay, so we knew it, but it increases because we're anticipating, obviously, a larger turnout in the presidential election, so. All right, I think I have a motion to approve that renewal ballot. I think we have a second. Any other questions?
I have a question. Yes, I do have a question.
Please.
So I think we got a notice, you know, the way we set up this, process for bidding, initially, it was the initial term for the fall and then the renewal, and then a subsequent renewal was to encourage, you know, more competitive bidding by breaking up the bid bond requirements. Are we gonna see some competition, or are we still gonna basically be seeing, you know, essentially the same contractor? Or do we know if this is gonna effectively, achieve that goal?
Well, we did receive, the Midwest, this is the first contract that we had with Midwest, so prior to this, we were using ES&S, who subcontracted with MCR printing, out of Cliff, I believe, or Willoughby, and so those are the only two that bid, I believe. Kendra, did we have?
That's correct, those were the only two bidders.
So,
We structured the bid to get competitively, bid because of the performance bond requirements. This was it, we were able to break it down so that the performance bond requirements were, progressive, and another bidder could bid.
But essentially, so far, we just have the two.
yes, prior to Midwest actually bidding, I mean, being awarded this contract, we only had ES&S. So, but yeah, we anticipate probably still the only the two. There's a couple other printers in Ohio that are still in the printing game of ballots, but I don't believe that either have the capacity to bid on a county of our size.
Okay, thank you. I just want to comment, I know Director Pilates on, I think it's, can you unmute him, Anthony, or is it *7 to unmute yourself?
*6 to unmute. I'm just talking with Tony. Tony, are you online?
Is your phone unmuted, Tony? Well, okay, we have Ms. Soder here.
Hello?
Yeah,
There we
okay.
go.
Well, we'll just leave you.
Great.
Okay. So we have a motion and we've had some discussion on it. Any other board members have questions? No. Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And then on to, I'll move to approve the contract agreement for live results election night reporting annual software licensing fee with Tenex Software Solutions, the amount of $24,000 for the period of June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2021. There's a second. Thank you. Mr. Musson, would you just comment? I think you drafted a contract and that's part of our package, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I put together some standard terms and conditions and just incorporated our proposal with our RFP to send back to them for signature. I don't think we've received any comments back on it. Kendra, did you hear anything from Tenex?
No, these services, they were informally bid and Tenex was the only bidder, and they sent back a signed agreement.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So there was a bid went out on these, correct?
Informal.
Yes,
So a number of vendors, correct?
Yes, and
Yeah.
we did not receive any, they were the only ones to respond. They are the company that has been doing our election night reporting. This is the first time, however, we have done a contract. And done an informal bid for this process of being under $25,000.
So it was open for bid, we got one bidder, and this is, and I think it's the same price that it was last year.
Yes, sir.
It hasn't increased. Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you, it passes unanimously. And we are on to, we'll move to approve, to send the voter information guide for the August 4th, 2020 special elections at the levy out in Maple Heights, if there's a second. Thank you. Any questions or comments on that voter guide? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Any new business, Director Berlotti?
Yeah, there are a couple things I just want to quickly mention on. Two of these actually deal with the prosecutor's office. The first is the county's internal auditor. Her name is Monica Houston. She is, along with other departments, she is trying to audit the Board of Elections to ensure that our elections, or the upcoming fall election, will be conducted without fraud. And I do not believe that the county's internal auditor has any jurisdiction over the Board of Elections. Kind of similar as in the past when the county's Inspector General tried to have oversight or guidance on our operations. So, you know, we are not created by county charter. We come out of code. Our oversight is the Secretary of State. So I did reach out to Mark when we received this request. It just so happens that Mark is also the legal counsel for an audit board that exists. So he is not able to provide us guidance on this, but Dave Lambert has assigned another attorney, assistant prosecutor named Nora Ford. Nora has done some work for us in the past years back, and I've had an initial conversation with Nora. She's looking into this to give us guidance. She does not believe initially that the auditor does have oversight of us, but she will give us an official document indicating which we can then share or discuss with the county's Department of Internal Audit. When this did happen before with the Inspector General, it came out like right before the election with some kind of unofficial document or report stating that we were not prepared to process provisional ballots for elections, which was completely incorrect, false. And so we do not want anything like that to happen again. We have nothing to hide. However, they don't have this oversight. And
Director Berlotti, I know Board Member Wondolowski has a question for you.
These things don't just pop up out of nowhere. Who would have instructed her or asked her to do this audit?
So I am guessing, I don't know if Mark is better suited to answer this or not, but we got an email, and actually the laundry list of departments, probably be a couple dozen, some of them underneath the county executive, some of them not. In fact, the prosecutor's office is on this list. And I think there's some other outside boards, and my understanding is that these non-county executive departments are saying, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here? So I don't know if this is coming at the direct direction of the county executive, or if this is, she's a newer employee, Auditor Houston, and she is just trying to, maybe she doesn't understand her boundaries within her department. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if Mark, if you have any additional insights on that.
Yeah, this came as an audit plan that the audit committee approved, that she proposed based on a risk assessment that she conducted that involved a number of different metrics.
Risk to who, no?
The county generally, but yeah, this has been an issue that other entities are questioning as well, whether or not it exposes the county to, what kind of risk are they overseeing, or what are they trying to do?
Who does she work for?
The audit committee is a charter established body that has 4 citizen members. the representative from council and the county executive is the ex officio non-voting member, and so is Michael Chambers, the fiscal officer, are non-voting members. The citizen representatives are appointed by the county executive. And I believe they're passed upon by council to get formally appointed to this body. So a number of other entities similar to this body, Commission, Bureau, the Metro Health, Prosecutor's Office. There's some jurisdictional questions that are being raised, and other entities are looking at the same question that Nora's looking at on your behalf. And there was a meeting, the audit committee meets quarterly. There was a quarterly meeting 2 weeks ago, and this question came up, and they formally referred the question of their jurisdiction to the prosecutor's office. Since we're on it, we have a little bit of a question whether or not we need to address it ourselves, or can we sever off the prosecutor's office and
Only a conflict to me.
right. So it's being worked through. This body is being represented by to answer this question on whether or not you need to subject yourself or submit to, voluntarily you can do what you want, but whether you're compelled to do it is another question. And I shouldn't even say that because I'm recused out of it because I'm on both sides.
I appreciate the explanation. So, Director Bellotti, did they give us a date that they wanted to start this process?
She wants to come in and actually be on site or in and out September through November, so right in the heart of executing the presidential election.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could on that, during the meeting, when this question came up, whether they have the ability to conduct this review, there was a motion, or at least some discussion about removing it from the audit plan until this question was satisfactorily addressed. They left it on the audit, they did not adopt that, and left it on the audit plan, but instructed Monica to, I'll hold it in advance until they get an answer on whether or not to have the ability to pursue this. So she's not going to, my understanding, she's not going to press the issue until there's an answer on whether or not they have the ability to conduct it.
Have we advised the Secretary of State's office at least that they've made this request, their legal counsel?
I'm not aware of that, but I'll raise that with Nora.
She should reach out to them and let them know, see what their position is about this.
Okay, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can we see can somebody send us a list of everyone that's being audited? I'd like to see that.
Yes, I will provide you.
So could you give us a copy, the board, please send us a copy, Mr. Bellotti, of the letter you received?
Yeah, I can send you the email that she sent with a list of the departments and kind of what she's looking at. Just a brief description on what she wants to do with each of these other agencies, departments.
Any other questions for Mr. Frost? Ms. Chappelle?
No, thank you.
All right, well, keep us posted, enforce the email, and then we'll wait to hear from Ms. Nora. All right, anything else, Director Bellotti?
Yeah, the other one is I want, in this prosecutor's office, we had previously, you might recall, we received a records request from Leo Spellecy, or his law office, dealing with the two questions on the from Cleveland that were withdrawn from the ballot, and wanting to know what the ballot markings were for those contests, even though they weren't ballot contests because of withdrawal. So that, like with many records requests, we forwarded on to the prosecutor's office, we forwarded on to Mark. Mark is researching this issue because it is kind of unique because we haven't had this before. And Mark is communicating with the staff in his office, as well as Mark did reach out and spoke with an attorney, Jeff Hobday, at the Secretary of State's office in their legal department on this matter, and have come to an answer that those ballot markings, or I guess we would, I don't know if you want to call them votes, but they were filled in ovals, are not public records because those were not valid questions, that they were properly withdrawn, and therefore any markings for them are not votes because it wasn't a valid question. So Mark, has prepared a response to Mr. Spellacy, and we'll be sending that to his attention this week. So I wanted to make you aware of that, when we did get that, just to keep the board informed or updated as to what the status of that unique request was. And so that, just a high level summary. Mark could probably answer any more specific questions a little better than that.
Is your, the board will be copied on your letter, Mark?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, anything else?
I have two issues. Tony, unless you wanted to speak about them. It is.
Well, I do need to leave. I apologize. I've been trying to get this appointment for some time, and this was the only time I could get it. Again, I apologize for having to leave the meeting early, but Chantel, I know she wants to, or she will talk about election night reporting for November, and then any other items she deems necessary. So unless there's any other specific questions for me, I'm going to exit the meeting.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. All right. Thanks, everybody.
The two issues, both are, one is addressing the email from Board Member Chappelle about election night reporting and whether or not the Secretary of State's office would be changing the way in which we report in future elections. This past election, we did report results only at one point in time. That had something to do with their IT program, excuse me, and the extension of the election. I do believe that was a one-time only issue that we should not experience again. In the event that we do have a repeat of the situation in which the election would be extended, I don't believe anything is outside the realm of possibility anymore. I don't even say things like, which would never happen, because here we are. But in the event that that does, something like similar happens, the Secretary of State's office is working to change their IT program for election night reporting. The issue came when we didn't have election day results. We only had absentee results. So their system was set up to receive multiple uploads for the election day reporting, but not multiple uploads for an absentee reporting. And changing the system at that point in time would have been probably a bigger risk than us only reporting at one point. So I don't, to answer your question directly, Board Member Chappelle, I do not believe that we will ever experience that again. Only reporting.
Thank you. I appreciate that update. Thank you.
The second issue is lessons learned reporting. We do not have a formal report to present at this time. We will have something more formalized in our conversation after our conversations with the Secretary of State's office. I am happy to say that all departments have completed their lessons learned meetings with their internal staffs. We will be having a management team lessons learned session to kind of talk about issues that overlap one with the other. We do have a short list of items that are probably more big ticket to focus on for the November election, but we'll work to get that in a more formalized report for the board, and hopefully have that available prior to the next board meeting.
Great, anything else? How about August 4th? Been planning coming along?
Yes, so the UOCAPA opens for August 4th on the 19th. And everything's ready to go for that.
I know Member Frost has been appointed by the Secretary of State to be on the Ready for November task force. We've met a couple of times. Be appropriate, Rob, to give us a summary of what House Bill 680 and the work you're doing there.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the Ready for November task force, we had a meeting that was broadcast live on Ohio Government Television. We have another meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m., which is also like this meeting here, publicly able to attend via Zoom. I think I'm going to be attending remotely tomorrow, that one. The big development in this area so far has been the passage in the Ohio House of House Bill 680. I, along with the president of the Iowa Association of Election Officials, Michelle Wilcox, went to Columbus last Wednesday to testify. We were slated to testify right after Secretary LaRose, who intended to testify in opposition to the bill. The Ohio Elections Officials Association did not take a position in support of or opposed to the bill, but we had numerous changes that we wanted to see, in which we were in line with the Secretary's office for his reasons for opposing the bill. On Wednesday morning and throughout the early afternoon of Wednesday, the House committee worked diligently to address many of these concerns and did amend House Bill 680 to be something that accomplishes a lot towards being ready for November. Important things that it does, we will not have a postcard mailing that then leads to nothing except huge volume of phone calls at boards of elections around the state. It does allow for the Secretary of State to mail absentee ballot applications to every registered voter, and that will be done using federal money. That is an important return back to past practice, particularly in presidential election years, that every voter will get their absentee ballot application in the mail from the Secretary of State. It also allows the Secretary of State to use federal funds for poll worker training and recruitment, as well as equipment needs for boards of elections. This bill does contemplate that we will have in-person voting, but as you can hear by the funding of the absentee ballot application, the idea is to encourage every voter who has confidence in voting by mail to do so. So we really want to push and promote voting by mail for everyone who has confidence in that, while allowing in-person voting for everyone who prefers to vote that way. And that means it may be a harder challenge, like we saw leading into March 17th for poll worker recruitment. There may be additional training beyond just the operating of the election. There may be COVID and hygiene training that we need to do. There may be additional equipment and spacing measures that we need to take. So that funding being in there is important. It returns in-person voting to House Bill 680 as amended and passed by the House, returns early in-person voting to the status quo ante, that a person can come vote in person, and they don't have to fit into a select category to be able to do so. And Saturday, Sunday, and Monday voting will continue as current practice. That was of some debate. I think it's nearly unanimous, if not entirely unanimous, among boards of elections to do away with in-person voting on Monday. But there is also a sense that a lot of people are used to that as the last opportunity to vote. If you didn't request your absentee ballot in time, but you also can't vote on election day. So there are tensions there. Currently, the decision on House Bill 680 is to leave Monday in-person voting in place. It's an administrative hurdle, but one which our agency and all the other 87 boards of elections do find a way to manage, but it is difficult. The one major change to note is that it moves the deadline for requesting your vote by mail ballot, your absentee ballot, to the Tuesday before the election. I think we all believe, I can see by the heads nodding, that's important to not have people rely on a deadline that then does not give them a realistic opportunity to cast their ballot. So moving the deadline up, we may have some people who then miss the deadline because it's moved up, but at least then their status will be clear, and they have that whole weekend to vote early in person, and they have election day. So the general consensus is there. It's going to take some good communication to make sure people are aware of the new deadline and they're aware of their opportunities to vote after that deadline. There are a few things, three that I can think of, that are not in this bill that we would have liked to have seen from the Ohio Association of Elections Officials and the Secretary of State, two of which I hope the Senate might put in. So this now moves to the Senate. The Senate may make amendments that go into conference committee. One is Senator Teresa Gabbard had a bill earlier this year, Senate Bill 191, to allow for online absentee ballot applications. So I think that would be a great development if we can move to that. The Secretary of State has indicated they can make the technological upgrades where they are the clearinghouse for those online applications. They also have committed, even if they don't have online applications, their online application that you can fill out in print will be a much better module and will be a much better experience for voters, whether they can actually click submit online or whether they have to click and print it out and then mail it in. Either way, it's going to be a better experience on the Secretary of State's website than what was rushed through and worked, but had a couple, hitches that maybe confused some voters, is what the Secretary's sentiment on that has been, is that it can be improved. And so we want to see that. Another item that we'd like to see is clarification on the use of school buildings. Leaving the decisions to local boards of education and teachers unions to work together for how they're going to accommodate that. But particularly in this era where we cannot any longer, at least in the current situation, utilize senior assisted livings, senior apartment facilities, that we need to have greater access and greater clarification on that access for use of school buildings. There is a sense that it might be prudent to create a school holiday. But right now, what was being discussed was not a statewide mandate of a school holiday, but rather leave it to boards of education to decide how they make certain school buildings available without students present. The final change that has been discussed, and I continue to believe it's a good idea, but may not be something that we would implement in Cuyahoga County, in my opinion, for this year, would be multiple early in-person locations. I think it would be a great development if that could be included in this bill. Whether the timeline for when it is allowed is this year or not, it needs to be important that each county be able to make that determination. The one thing that I was able to communicate clearly is that we have not made that determination in Cuyahoga County that we would utilize that if granted that ability this year. But for the future, if the momentum is there to make this change, it is a good change, and there's nothing wrong with having an option that we don't utilize this year, but that we then know we are authorized to use in future years. So no real sense. I don't really think the momentum is there to put that in this bill, because you don't have a lot of counties at this late date clamoring and saying we really need that, just like us, or to figure out how they're going to do their in-person voting for this presidential year. And I don't predict we're going to see multiple early in-person voting locations being authorized. That's my report.
What about postage? Pay postage?
The postage is being paid on the absentee ballot applications. Chantil, do you remember? I'm trying to remember the stats of what ended up being passed in the House bill on the return postage for applications and ballots.
I don't believe it was a business either, but I'd have to double check to see what,
There's a change of heart on that. Secondly, how many, for election day, what is our status on how many polling locations have to be moved or switched or changed because of they're currently in senior populated areas?
I know that we moved 40 locations at the end of November, or I'm sorry, at the end of the March, right before the last 2 weeks of the election. There were, it started out as, I think, about 16 or 22, and then it seemed like then we found other communities, like that were more of like a senior community instead of the apartment that didn't make our first week. So it was a total of 40 that we had to move out of. We tried for the most part to move into other locations and join, but there were a few new locations created. So at this point, what we had set to work on March 17th had already excluded the 40 that we changed last minute. I think that in addition to the moves that we have made out of senior apartment buildings or nursing homes, is the locations that the room is going to be too small to accommodate something that requires social distancing. So Director Carlotti had an example of the Vizio that we had looked at just for the Maple Heights election, where we would typically put in 42 voting booths, but with social distancing, that took that number down to 17. So we really, the question becomes the line of standing in line. And in November, it would be standing in the line outside if there isn't enough, to form the line for. So I think that will probably drive more of our location changes. We would, we agree with the school putting that in the bill, something more formal. We try and keep a good relationship with the schools, and we understand the safety concerns that they have for the students, but without the opportunity to move into a school, we're going to be in a jam probably with some of those locations.
Well, and I would imagine our voter information guide for November will change drastically with a lot of different instructions, correct?
Yes, sir.
And hopefully, maybe include all of the change locations. I know you're gonna mail out to everybody individually, but maybe on that voter information guide.
Yes, the thought is that we'll do 2 different ones, one for everybody whose home location stays the same, which we are very hopeful that is the majority of the county. But there is going to be a separate one for all the ones where their voting location has changed to kind of draw attention to the fact that it is a new form location. We haven't completed the design set. I think that we were waiting to see how many of the larger changes, passed in legislature. We know that we have to, we want to focus and encourage as many people to vote by mail as possible. So while this is a voter information guide that gives election day polling location information, we do want to change the marketing piece a little bit. So we are really highlighting vote by mail.
I just say that gate postage is a big part of that. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot to us, but I mean, I think to the impoverished areas, it's gonna help drive the early voting, so the mail-in voting. So I just ask that you relay that in your meetings.
A couple of things, Chantel, could you make a point, you and Tony, I think at every meeting, kind of updating us where we're on poll locations? I know it's gonna be a big job, and because of the social distancing requirements, I feel real comfortable knowing, we're working on it, and or at least giving us a heads up early if there's a problem we anticipate. Just to follow up on Rob's excellent summary, a couple of things, Rob. What's the timetable you think is going on in the Senate? And the 3 initiatives you talk about, are those initiatives SOS is supporting also?
Yes, particularly on the use of school buildings and the online application of being able to submit your application online for vote by mail. The multiple early in-person voting locations, Secretary Rose's position has been, and it still is, if counties want that, we should give them that option. And that's why I say I think the momentum is perhaps not there on that item, because I think most counties like ours are saying, hey, we needed to know last year what we would be able to do this year for something that complex.
Sure.
So I don't think, while the Secretary supports providing that option to boards in principle, I don't sense anyone is pushing that needs to be in this bill. In terms of the Senate's timetable, it's a bit of a challenge to see what to expect the Senate to do. I hope to see them move on this as soon as this week. I think from speaking with the Secretary when I was down there, he would rather see the Senate move forward with the bill as is than spend a lot of time, even if there are some other improvements, he and boards would like to see. Timeliness right now and predictability is the single most important thing our boards need. Just even hearing Deputy Director Satter's comment about the voter information guide and what all we're going to need to have in there. Well, if they go on break, if they go on recess and come back in a month and start addressing this now, at that point, rather than addressing it this week, now we're really getting up against deadlines for procurement and planning to then implement and have things going out during the early voting period, during Ohio voting and the like. So I think it's everyone's hope to see the Senate take this up this week, see if they have consensus on the bill as is, see if they have any modest changes that it's going to take for them to be able to get a strong majority, hopefully bipartisan consensus on the passage in the Senate would be very helpful. I say all that very guardedly. That's what I hope to see. That's what the Secretary hopes to see. We will wait and see in the course of this week.
Well, and that's why your task force, you're scheduled to meet weekly.
We're scheduled to meet weekly, and our hope is that we have a bill that Governor DeWine has signed, and what our task force is dealing with is now how do boards work together, best practices to implement these things, not in some sort of advocacy of changes we hope to see. We want that to be set very soon.
And one final question, I don't know who's best, maybe it's because I don't understand. So when the Secretary of State mails out an application and completes it, Does it go right to our board? Will it go back to the secretary? And this is all in light of, I know there was an issue about barcoding and slow our process up, so how would that be?
So the issue with, the, barcoding was because of a postcard, which is not a part of this bill. And that postcard geared all of the voters who were receiving it to go to the Secretary of State's website to fill out an application and print out. Obviously, they're not able to put our barcode on an application that's generated from the Secretary of State's website. That's not the case. When the Secretary of State's office sends out an application, they do work with us so the barcode simply has information, the voter information ID number from our DIMS voter registration system. We're not the only board of elections to use it in that capacity. We are different in the fact, as in dealing with the postcard situation, where our online application program does generate a barcode for us. But we're not the only one who has like the barcode mentality or process in place. So we do fully anticipate for the application, like it has in the past from the Secretary of State's office, to include our voter ID barcode that will allow us to process those applications. They will come directly to us, so the return address that's on those applications does have our address on it, or at least that's how I haven't obviously seen it for this election, but that's how it's always worked in the past.
Any other questions from board members or comments from board members? No. Hearing none, then we have any public testimony, Anthony?
Yes, Adele indicated that she'd like to make some public comments, so Adele, if you're on the line, if you muted, please press star today.
I'm unmuted, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please, Ms. Iser, we have you 5 minutes of the floor, please.
I understand. The topic today is, my topic today is the need for accountability. Accountability, let's go with the fiscal report. I'm wondering if that the way the fiscal report, there being a fiscal report and no vouchers, is that the new mode? Are we doing away with the voucher, affirming the voucher list is submitted to the board?
No, they circulate it, and per the law and per the memorandum, anything under $25,000, the board doesn't have to officially act upon it in a public meeting. And so we have questions, we ask them those questions of staff, and then they go ahead and process they give us plenty of time to look at those. And then those vouchers should be posted to the website so the public can see them. Anything over $25,000, we will act on as a board and have discussion, and if appropriate, we'll approve it.
Oh, okay, so the $24,000, by what you just said, didn't have to be approved, is that correct?
That's correct. No, it doesn't have to be approved at a public meeting of the board. Mr. Russell?
Yes, there are renewal options in there. So if you look at whether they're authorizing the director to exercise those renewals, but the way that it was prepared is that those renewals will come back to the board each time. Under the policy, it's not obligated, but this was something that the staff wanted to bring to the board and the board to review at open meeting.
Thank you. Go ahead, Adele.
So citizens and taxpayers don't see how those choices are being made until after they've been made, after purchases have been completed. The way it happens with that contract agreement for live results election night reporting that has been used for at least a year, and now the contract pops up. That seems odd, doesn't it? There was no contract.
When you got, Adele, you had commented about that about a year ago, and we've created a contract now. So I don't know what your quibble is.
My point is that the citizens should be able to have some input or at least the knowledge of what the purchases are before they occur, not after they occur. And certainly not a contract after they occur. I find the resistance to oversight in general appalling, just appalling. So oversight by citizens, and then we get greasy little notes on like voter survey cards. We appreciate you. Who is the we and who is the you? There is just no perspective of the board working in the citizens' best interest. And that this whole money thing is a core part of that. That's my point.
Okay,
I'm
thank
done.
you. Thank you. Anyone else, Anthony?
No one else reserved their place.
Okay.
Can I ask one other thing, and that is, when you get this whole video thing smoothed out, I didn't get any notice of any Zoom number. I got a notice that I'd be able to see this video on the board's, YouTube channel or something.
We will
I don't know.
We will notify the public.
But that's not my my question is, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but to continue, my question is, I find it really difficult for citizens who want to not only blindly trust, but to trust and verify, to be able to observe an audit, that this could have been worked out so that the audit, after citizens paid $900 for a new camera lens, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, et cetera, why can't the audit, a publicly open meeting, not meeting, but a publicly open event, why can't it in the COVID time not be done live stream? I'm done. I really don't want to expose myself I want to observe the audit, but I don't want to expose myself in the air quality of the warehouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Ramos.
I have been in public service since 2003. And I have always taken great pride in open and transparent government. And anytime I thought that that was not taking place, I was very adamant that we had to change the way we were doing business. Last week I saw an email from Ms. Eisner that was inflammatory and accusatory of our director and deputy director, a Democrat and a Republican. And I have to say, we've been putting up with this for a couple of years now, at least. I can't even count. I don't even remember how many times the accusations have been pushed either on the board or on people in this building. And for the record, it's insulting. And I have no problem with questions, and I have no problem with answers. And I have no problem with the truth. But the questions are insulting to the hardworking people in this building. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Chappelle, anything, Joe?
No, nothing for me.
Okay, hearing none, I will move to.
Excuse me, but since my name was in both, may I reply?
No, we're done. You can talk to Mr. Wondolowski if you'd like personally. We're finished with me. I'm gonna file up, make a motion to adjourn our meeting and we'll come back. Thank you, Mr. Frost. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for your attendance. I think, thank you. Thanks. All right. This,
I don't know.
it's just, you got it.